Warning: the following video contains strong language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Hey guys, my name is He Who Reviews. Welcome back to another video. Let's get into it. This video is going to be my general thoughts on the Percy Jackson series as a whole now that it is finished. Now that Season 1 is finished, I'm going to give my general thoughts, a general overview on what I think of the series, do I recommend it, so on and so forth. So let's get into it. Overall, I love the series. I'm absolutely not going to bury the lead here, so generally speaking, I recommend this. But let's go over what I liked, what I didn't like, etc, etc. Starting with what I really liked, the first two episodes felt like really good setup, really good adaptations of the chapters. Speaking of, I really like the fact that the episodes were literally chapter names and adaptations of the chapters, and that's how they split it up into episodes. I think that was a really good move, not necessarily a clever one, but a good move, and really shows how you can adapt books better in a serialized format and things, and really makes me look forward to other books being adapted into series like Harry Potter in future down the road. Because I think this is a good blueprint for how good it can be, and some things to avoid as well. But yeah, I really liked the first two episodes of The Faithfulness. An adaptation of that was good, and they also put in some other things like the Myth is Magic card game to set up further down the road for future things in future books, which I will not spoil for those of you that haven't read them. But I liked the little setups that they gave as well to try and enrich the world and even connect bits that weren't necessarily completely connected beforehand. And it's as if Rick Riordan, when he was, I hope I'm saying that name right, when he was brought on with this series, it's as if he was sort of like, how can I make it better for a serialized format and a Disney Plus series, but also set things up that I perhaps didn't think about in the books while writing them. So he's increasing the little connections between books by the appearance of it, at least from Season 1, and that I really liked and really appreciate. So the first two episodes were a really great way of starting off, and that really hooked me from moment one. I think Walker Scoville did an amazing job as Percy Jackson, and I think he was an absolutely brilliant cast for the role. I've forgotten her name, I'm so sorry, but the girl that played Annabeth, she really embodies the character to me. The personality was on point. You can really tell they brought the author on for it, and that the scriptwriters seem to listen to the author as well. So I think that, yeah, this is a pretty good, faithful adaptation from book to screen. And I really like the actors cast. The only character that really stood out to me is you don't feel like the book character, or you're not quite there. Like you could be there, and this is no... Like the guy that played Grover, I just thought, no, you haven't quite got his awkwardness down, and his feelings that he's a coward in the earlier books. You haven't quite got that down. To me, it's sort of there, but it doesn't quite work for me. And I know he's a child actor, so I'm not trying not to be too harsh, but he just didn't feel like the character to me. The other two were really, really good, and I'm sure that with time, and I'm sure the writers and Rick Riordan, the author, are sort of looking at commentary on the series, because of obviously the movies didn't get a great fan reception. So they're looking at commentary on this adaptation, and I'm sure they'll adapt it, and perhaps with time, the guy that played Grover will settle back more into the role for me. So I'm not saying he can't improve, but just this season, yeah, it was a little too awkward, and the dialogue felt like it didn't go as well as it did in the books. I don't know whether that was the performance, the script, so I'm not trying to blame the child actor here, I'm really not. But it just didn't fit with me. But anyway, otherwise I think the casting was great. Especially Adam Copeland, who you'll know as Edge in WWE, cast as Ares, was excellent as well. I loved that. I think there were changes to some characters as well, some of which I liked, some of which I didn't. There were changes to characters like Sally Jackson, Percy's mum. There's just one change I wish they hadn't done, and that was how she's a bit more stubborn towards, as he's known in the book, Smelly Gabe. And the reason she's more stubborn and the reason she's not more stubborn towards him in the books is because she's using his obvious human qualities and smell for the sake of the joke. Like his obnoxious human qualities to hide Percy from the gods as a half-blood, so that she can be selfish and keep Percy as close to her as possible. So you then understand why she didn't stand up to him as much, and then his fate in the books is really dark, but also the audience is like, yeah, I hate that guy. Whereas here, they really tried to turn that down, I guess, because it's on Disney+. And I sort of understand it, but I don't think it works when toned down. Because they sort of make him the belligerent, unwilling stepfather, not as genuinely abusive as he was. Which then I think his fate, spoiler alert, with Medusa's head, isn't really as well deserved. They give him a darker turn throughout the later bits of the book, throughout the later bits of the series to match the book. It's implied that, like, he turned darker then, but I don't think it quite works. I suppose you could say that's the subtle way of still following the books, but not directly implying physical abuse towards Sally's character because it's a Disney Plus show. So I get why they were doing it, it just didn't work as well for me. It was still, like, you still end up feeling like the character's a douchebag and disliking him because he does take a darker turn and basically uses Percy to gain money, and blames Percy for everything, and tries to say, like, oh, we love that car, I'm sure she'd want you to give me money and things, and you get that he's a belligerent stepfather who's addicted to gambling and cares more about money than either her or Percy. But I don't think he was shown as badly and as truly terrible as he is in the books. Therefore, his fate at the end, they changed it so it's by his own hand. But I don't see Sally, like, selling him as a statue of art like she does in the at the end of the other books, which they don't reference here, so perhaps she doesn't do that, but I don't know, like, he's not undeserving of his fate, but it doesn't land that satisfying catharsis of, yes, the douchebag is gone. So that was saddening to me. I don't know how to feel about that one. And you could still say that she was strong doing it the other way around, or show she was strong in other ways, with the added scenes you had here between her fighting for Percy's safety with the teacher, and her discussing Percy's fate with Poseidon in the bar as well. So the added scenes here I really did like, but I don't like how Gabe's character was changed, because it muddies how I feel about his fate. He's still deserving of it, but it's not quite as satisfying. Maybe that says something more about my character than his as to how I feel about that, but there we are. I don't know. What do people think on that point? But yeah, the added scenes here are great as well, showing Sally's love towards Percy throughout, but in different ways. Sometimes Percy doesn't understand it, sometimes Percy really does feel bonded, and it's confusing for Percy because obviously he doesn't know why. And then actually seeing Poseidon have conversations with Sally, even though she's like, oh, you know, you've been watching from afar. It's like, I know, but you've got no one else to say it to, so say it to me. That was really caring, and you show that Poseidon really does care. Whereas in the books he did care, but also had to treat Percy as a mistake so the other gods didn't get worried that he was, like, colluding against Zeus and the prophecy was a problem. As in, like, Zeus didn't feel threatened by Percy, so Percy sort of for a couple of books was uneasy around his father and not quite sure how to talk to him, whereas this time it clears up the muddy lines of, yeah, he does care, he just accepts that he's a god so can't step in to solve his half-blood son's problems, otherwise there would be war on Olympus. And the gods are flawed, so their rules impeding them being parents and making them flawed parents makes sense with Greek mythology. And it makes sense that Zeus would be a kind of, frankly, be like, yes, I had a daughter named Thalia as well who was treated as a hero, but you still broke your oath and forget about his own transgressions, because that's how Zeus is. So it makes sense, but I also like that they did confirm that Poseidon is a more distant but caring father here. I liked that, and the additional scenes you got with Sally Jackson's character, with Poseidon's character. I liked that. How they changed the ending, so Poseidon and Zeus aren't just having a casual conversation when Percy interrupts, but Poseidon actually says, "I'll surrender, don't kill my son or there will be war." You know, it's nice that he actually stands up for him, and then they give stuff straight out of the books. They didn't give the one line out of the books that I really wanted, which was "You are a true son of the sea god," which shows him really being proud of Percy. But they did it in a more emotional way, through facial expression, which, for me being visually impaired, I didn't catch as well. But I'm told worked really well for the general audience. When it's like, "Do you dream about Mum?" And it's like, he sort of gets caught in his throat, and I don't quite catch what he says. I think he says no, because it's too emotional for him to admit, and then he says, "You should be going." But if I remember that rightly, that's what he says, and that really worked for me in the dialogue. Can't speak to the facial expression, but apparently the facial expression was pained and really good between the two actors, so well done to them for that scene there. And yeah, I like the changes with Poseidon's character. The additional scenes you get here with Sally Jackson really work. Scenes between the trio are reasonably good, but as I say, Grover's awkwardness comes off differently in live action to me, so that does make it a bit strange. But, you know, the setup for Annabeth and Percy's characters, where they might go down the line, I don't know whether they'll change any of their story beats, but I liked the dynamic between the two of them here, bonding as friends. It was really nice. She called him Seaweed Brain a couple of times, but it wasn't overdone. It is a bit overdone in the books, but I like how they used it sparingly here, so it sort of feels a bit more slower and a bit more natural as to them becoming begrudged friends from the first book. I won't spoil anything that happens further, but yeah, I liked the two of them playing off of each other really well. The trio does work. Other characters I want to talk about is Adam Copeland, who of course was Edge, or is Edge to WWE fans, I should say. I don't know whether he's actually retired from it yet. But him as Ares was a choice I was not expecting, but it was really interesting getting to see him act, and he really nailed how I envisioned Ares, and really nailed that personality for future things down the line as well, so I'm really looking forward to that. The fight choreography between him and Percy and Ares was great as well. It was great seeing a lot of villains here. Seeing the Underworld and Cerberus was cool. I like the CGI on Cerberus. The CGI for the Underworld itself was pretty good as well. Like, the set pieces here were really well designed, I think. It wasn't quite as descriptive as in the books, but frankly, I suppose that's to tone down the literal hell aspect of the Underworld for Disney+, so I suppose there's some trade-offs to that. But I liked what we got with Cerberus. I feel like it would have been nicer to see a bit more of Cerberus, actually, because I really liked that portion of the book where Annabeth is using obedience training on him, which you got to see, but it was just a bit quick, I think. The stuff with Medusa as well was really interesting to see, although she was kind of made to be more of a victim but still the villain, which there are different iterations and different beliefs around the Greek mythology tales, because there are different retellings, and the guilty parties do sway, and the misjudging eye of the gods and their flaws do sway in different directions with different retellings of the tale. But I don't know, the way she used the word survivor left an odd feeling, because I'm like, oh, are we implying that, like, survivor is a very loaded term in the modern day, and I just think, oh, that went a bit darker than I was expecting, but she's meant to be considered a victim, but still the villain, because she's holding a grudge against the trio for choosing to be like their parents by the end of their confrontation, which doesn't really work. Like, if the villain is this much of a victim, making them still the villain doesn't really work, and it's sort of clunky, and I don't know. I wish they hadn't. I wish, in a way, they'd made it clearer as to what they wanted you to feel, and hadn't used the word survivor, because it's a loaded term in this day and age, and it made me feel uncomfortable hearing it. Maybe that was the point, but I don't know. It was a weird choice with Medusa. The actress did a wonderful job playing what she was told to play, and it was very terrifying. However, making her a victim but still the villain was a bit of an odd choice to me. But then again, the muddiness of the Greek tales and the flaws of the gods, I guess it does make sense. I just don't like it. Lance Reddick playing Zeus. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Who unfortunately passed away. R.I.P. to him, rest in peace, good sir. He did a phenomenal job, and it's sad that we won't get to see him in the role again. Obviously, they'll have to recast, so let's not be a bad fandom and hate on them for recasting, because they're going to need to. But he did a phenomenal job with what he was given. The presence of Zeus, the fear, the controlling nature, because he is genuinely scared of some of the Half-Blood's prophecies, some of his siblings generally willing to go to war with him and compelling them through fear. It really embodied the Greek myths, really embodied that passage of the book really well. Them actually speaking in Greek was more than I thought we'd get, and it was lovely. Yeah, but he did a great job as Zeus, and just... I rest in peace, good sir. Your performance was immaculate, and the faithfulness to the books for that scene. There were some things changed, as I think I've already said, but what was given was brilliant. The only other aspect that actually stood out to me that I do want to talk about was the change in Hephaestus' theme park. I hope I'm saying the word Hephaestus correctly. Where it's a trap for Ares and his girlfriend. They used the chair that he made. They used the chair that he used to imprison a god instead of the ride that would have exposed Ares and his girlfriend to Olympus and would have embarrassed both Annabeth and Percy, and used mechanized spiders, showing Annabeth's fear of spiders. I feel like I wish they hadn't, because they put Hephaestus in there and he kind of was like, I've trapped him. Yes, but it's not Ares, it's Percy, and actually you've just pissed off Poseidon. That's all you accomplish here. So it was a bit of a weird choice to have Hephaestus act in that way with that particular trap, and if I recall correctly, that trap shows up in later points of the books, which might really wreck that point of the books. I'm not going to go into detail or depth here, but maybe it's a cool Easter egg. They're going to change things around, and it will actually work that they used it here. But to me, as it stands right now at this moment, I did not like that or Hephaestus' inclusion, because it just made him sound a bit petty. Annabeth talked him round, which was nice, but it wasn't necessary that Annabeth should have to talk him round. It's sort of like, well, you've trapped Percy, not Ares. You've actually achieved nothing and pissed off Poseidon. So yeah, it just didn't make sense to me that they changed that particular aspect of the books. However, I do like how they used Annabeth's fear of spiders, because it gave more to Luke and Percy's bond through a flashback. It gave Luke more to do. A little bit more anyway. And still set up, the traitor aspect of things quite well. Annabeth's fear of spiders was used to teach Percy a lesson about the gods, which was interesting. So overall, yeah, I think this was a really faithful adaptation. I think in some aspects it was trying to be too faithful and include every aspect of the books because of the movies, and some of them were a bit quick on the dime, or could have been done with less sympathy towards some characters. Medusa looking at you. But the characters were really good. If anything, as I say, they tried to be a bit too faithful and squeeze absolutely everything into a smaller runtime. I think it could have benefited from giving this 8 episodes as it did, but make them each an hour long and really give us a bit more character interaction, make Medusa less of a victim and sympathetic villain, because I don't think her villainy then works. There are small things they could have ironed out, but really, realistically, I really liked this, so I hope you don't mind my deep dive thoughts on what I liked and disliked here, and it doesn't all sound like jumbled rubbish to you guys. It does a bit to me, but hopefully editing will help. But yeah, overall, really liked this, really looking forward to Season 2, which has now been confirmed for renewal, so I'm absolutely thrilled. Most of the characters here and most of the actors did a phenomenal job, and I can't wait to see what they do next, and I really liked this. It was like the books genuinely come to life. Have some flaws with it, but overall... have some minor gripes with it, but overall, I love this. What did you guys think about this? Comment below and let me know. That's the end of this very long, deep dive, or rather unprofessional, gushing review that I have just put out. The video is over. You can finally go now.